The Valari considered themselves masters of psychological warfare. Their empire spanned 12 star systems, each conquest meticulously planned and executed with minimal physical damage to infrastructure. Why destroy what you could use? It was far more efficient to break the will of a species first. When they discovered Earth, they were initially unimpressed. The planet was rich in resources, but the inhabitants were primitive by comparison, barely a century into space travel, fractured into hundreds of competing nations, technologically inconsistent. The perfect target. Their first assault came not with warships but with infiltration units designed to study human psychology. 6 months later, they had their answer. Humans were remarkably resilient as a group but vulnerable as individuals. The conquest strategy was clear. Take key individuals, break them completely, then return them as hollow vessels to spread despair. Among the first abductees was a 12-year-old girl named Emma Reed. The selection was deliberate. Human societies universally protected children, making her eventual return as a broken shell all the more devastating to morale. Her profile indicated average intelligence, unremarkable physical abilities, and a stable family life. The Valari assessment classified her as easily malleable. Commander Torvax personally oversaw the conditioning program. Begin with isolation, he ordered. 90 days minimum. Then we moved to Phase 2. Emma was placed in a containment cell aboard the Valari mothership. The walls were smooth white polymer that absorbed sound. No windows, no furniture, just a small waste disposal unit and a feeding slot that opened twice daily. The lighting never changed. There was no way to track time. During her first week, Emma screamed herself hoarse. She banged on the walls until her fists bled. She begged. She wept. She slept from exhaustion, then woke to do it all again. By the 3rd week, she'd grown quieter. The observers noted with satisfaction that she had begun talking to herself, the first sign of mental destabilization. By the 6th week, she had developed a routine. She would walk the perimeter of her cell exactly 20 times after each meal. She would do exercises, jumping jacks, sit-ups, push-ups. Then she would sit, eyes closed, completely still for hours. She's attempting to create structure, Torvax noted with mild annoyance. Increase the sensory deprivation. They removed the consistency of meal deliveries. Sometimes she would receive food 3 times in quick succession, then nothing for what might have been days. They adjusted the temperature randomly. They added subtle, disorienting noises at unpredictable intervals. Yet Emma adapted. When the cell grew cold, she exercised more vigorously. When sounds disturbed her rest, she hummed to herself, creating a counter-rhythm. Interesting, said the ship's behavioral scientist, Melner. She's showing unusual adaptability. Torvax dismissed the observation. She's just a child. Increment to Phase 2. Phase 2 began on day 91. Emma was removed from isolation and placed in a simulation chamber. Here, the Valari deployed their most effective conditioning tool, manufactured reality. The chamber created perfect sensory illusions, sights, sounds, smells, textures. For the subject, it was indistinguishable from reality. They showed her Earth being conquered, her family being tortured, cities burning. Then they reset the simulation and showed it again, with small variations. Each time, the scenario ended with the same message: surrender is the only option. Throughout the simulations, monitors tracked her neural activity, heart rate, and stress hormones. The data would tell them exactly when her mind began to fracture. But something unexpected happened. After dozens of simulation cycles, Emma's stress markers weren't increasing. They were stabilizing. When shown the same apocalyptic scenarios, her vital signs remained eerily constant. She's compartmentalizing, Melner reported. I've never seen a subject adapt this quickly. Torvax stared at the data. No, he said firmly. She's just a human child. She will break. Start Phase 3. What neither of them realized was that Emma had already begun to understand the nature of her prison. and she was far from broken. Phase 3 was direct neural manipulation. The Valari connected Emma to a synaptic modulator, a device that could induce specific emotional states through targeted stimulation of the brain. Fear, despair, and hopelessness were the primary tools. The process typically reduced subjects to compliant shells within days. Emma was strapped to an examination table, electrodes affixed to her temples. A technician named Laurel operated the controls. Beginning baseline calibration, Laurel announced, sending a mild signal through the system. Emma's body tensed, then relaxed. Her face remained neutral. Increasing to level 2, Laurel continued, adjusting the settings. The girl's fingers gripped the edges of the table, knuckles whitening. Sweat beaded on her forehead, but she didn't cry out. Laurel glanced at Torvax, who nodded curtly. Proceed to level 3. The technician hesitated. Sir, we haven't properly calibrated for. Proceed, Torvax repeated. As the intensity increased, Emma finally screamed. A raw, primal sound that echoed through the laboratory. The monitors showed her pain response spiking dangerously. Then something unexpected happened. The neural patterns shifted. Where there should have been chaotic stress signals, new patterns emerged, organized, rhythmic. What's happening? Torvax demanded. Laurel studied the readouts with growing concern. She's adapting. Her brain is creating new pathways around the pain centers. Impossible. She's a child. Children's brains are more plastic than adults. Melnar interjected from the observation booth. They form new neural connections more readily. It's basic human biology. Torvax scowled. Increase to maximum intensity. Commander, that could cause permanent damage. Do it. Laurel reluctantly turned the dial. Emma's body arched off the table, her scream cutting off as every muscle tensed at once. The monitors showed critical levels across all systems. Then, just as suddenly, her body relaxed. Her breathing stabilized. The neural monitors showed activity declining to near normal levels. She's unconscious, Laurel reported, relief evident in his voice. No, Melnar contradicted, pointing to the consciousness indicator. She's awake. She's just controlled her response somehow. Torvax stared at the girl on the table. Her eyes were open, staring at the ceiling. There were tears on her cheeks, but her expression was unnervingly calm. Take her back to containment, he ordered. No food for 48 hours. Then we try again. The cycle continued for weeks. Each session began with Emma screaming and ended with her silent endurance. The Valari tried different approaches, alternating extreme pain with pleasure, creating false memories, inducing hallucinations. But the result was always the same. She would initially react, then adapt. Between sessions, they kept her in solitary confinement, but now they added constant surveillance. Hidden cameras tracked her every movement. They watched as she sat motionless for hours, eyes closed, breathing steady. They recorded her as she traced patterns on the floor with her finger, patterns that Melnar eventually recognized as mathematical sequences. She's not just enduring, Melnar reported during a staff briefing. She's using the time to strengthen her mind. Look at these patterns. She's solving complex equations mentally. She's 13, Torvax said dismissively. She's not a mathematician. No, Melnar agreed, but she's creating a mental framework, a sanctuary they can't reach. And she's getting better at it. Torvax's frustration grew with each failed session. What had begun as a routine conditioning project was becoming a troubling anomaly. More concerning were the whispers among the crew, stories of the human child who couldn't be broken. Prepare for Phase 4, he finally ordered. Full immersion. What none of them understood was that with each attempt to break her, Emma was learning about them, their technology, their methods. And beneath her facade of endurance, a plan was forming. Full immersion was the Valari's most advanced form of psychological warfare. Unlike previous simulations, this one would completely subsume Emma's consciousness. She would believe she had been returned to Earth, reunited with her family, resuming normal life. Except subtle wrongness would permeate everything. Colors slightly off, loved ones saying hurtful things, constant small failures and humiliations. The technique had broken hardened military commanders in mere days. For a teenage girl, they expected complete psychological collapse within hours. Emma was sedated and connected to the immersion chamber, a pod filled with neural conductive fluid. Hundreds of microscopic interfaces bonded with her nervous system. As the system activated, her conscious mind was disconnected from reality and inserted into the simulation. She awoke in her bedroom on Earth. Everything looked exactly as she remembered. The faded blue walls, the bookshelf crammed with paperbacks, the small desk where she used to do homework. Sunlight streamed through the window. For a moment, she felt disoriented. Had it all been a dream? The abduction, the isolation, the tortures. Her mother called from downstairs. "Emma, breakfast." She went down to the kitchen, her movements oddly hesitant. Her mother stood at the stove, back turned, making pancakes. The smell was exactly right. Butter, vanilla, a hint of cinnamon. Emma's favorite. "Mom," she said softly. Her mother turned, smiling. "There you are, sleepyhead." Emma rushed forward, embracing her tightly. She felt the warmth, smelled the familiar perfume. "Whoa," her mother laughed, patting her back. "What's this for?" "I just had a bad dream," Emma murmured. Her mother's hand paused. "Did you? What about?" Something in her tone made Emma pull back slightly. She looked up at her mother's face. The smile was still there, but it didn't reach the eyes. Those eyes, they were watching her too intently, analyzing her response. "I don't remember," Emma lied. "Him," her mother said, turning back to the stove. "Sit down. Your pancakes are getting cold." Emma sat, watching carefully. Everything looked perfect, but something felt wrong. The kitchen was too clean, the light too even. And her mother, she moved efficiently but mechanically, without the small hesitations and habitual gestures Emma knew so well. When her father joined them, she noticed the same uncanny precision in his movements. His jokes were exactly the kind he would make, but delivered with perfect timing. No fumbled punchlines, no characteristic pause before the payoff. "How's school going?" he asked over breakfast. "Fine," Emma answered cautiously. "Just fine. Not having any problems with the other kids." Emma frowned slightly. "No, why would I?" Her parents exchanged a glance. "No reason," her mother said quickly. "Just asking." As the day progressed, the wrongness intensified. At school, her best friend Kelly seemed distant, making cryptic comments about things Emma couldn't remember doing. Teachers asked about assignments she had no knowledge of. By lunchtime, she was sitting alone, watching everyone through narrowed eyes. In the observation room, Melnar monitored the simulation. "She's recognized the inconsistencies much faster than expected," he reported. "Most subjects accept the reality for at least a full cycle." Torvak studied the neural readouts. "Increase the emotional pressure. Let's see how she handles rejection." The simulation shifted subtly. Kelly approached Emma's isolated lunch table. "Everyone knows what you did," Kelly said, voice dripping with disgust. "How could you betray us like that?" Emma stared back calmly. "What exactly did I do, Kelly?" The simulated Kelly hesitated, programming momentarily searching for a plausible accusation. "You know what you did," she finally said, turning away. Emma watched her go, then whispered to herself, "No, you don't know what I should have done, because I'm not in your programming parameters." In the observation room, Melnar straightened. "Commander, she's aware of the simulation." "Impossible," Torvax snapped. "Increase the emotional distress. Add physical threats." The simulation wavered, then reformed. Emma now found herself walking home alone. The sky darkened prematurely. Footsteps echoed behind her. When she turned, 3 shadowy figures stood there, faces obscured, postures threatening. Emma didn't run. Instead, she turned fully to face them. "You're not real," she said clearly. "None of this is real." In the control room, alarms began to sound. "She's fighting the neural interface," Laurel reported, fingers flying over controls. "Her mind is rejecting the simulation parameters." "How?" Torvax demanded. "She has no training, no technology." "I don't know," Laurel admitted, "but she's creating disruptions throughout the system." On the immersion chamber's monitors, they watched as the simulation began to glitch. Buildings flickered. The threatening figures froze, then dissolved into pixels. The entire constructed reality began to tear at the edges. And in the center of the dissolution stood Emma, eyes closed, breathing steady, exactly as she had practiced during those long hours in isolation. "Shut it down," Torvax ordered. But before they could terminate the program, a message appeared on every screen in the control room. 6 simple words, in human English. "I can see you watching me." Commander Torvax ordered an immediate system-wide diagnostic. The immersion technology had never been compromised before, especially not by a subject from within the simulation. The technical team worked frantically, searching for the breach. "There's no external intrusion," reported the chief technician. "The command originated from within the neural interface itself." "Impossible," Torvax insisted, though with less conviction than before. "A human mind cannot directly interface with our systems." "Not normally," Melner agreed, "but we've had her connected to our neural technology for months. First the modulator, now the immersion system." He hesitated before adding, "And she's been practicing." Emma was removed from the immersion chamber and placed in a medical observation unit. Physically, she appeared unchanged. Still the same thin, pale human adolescent they had abducted nearly a year ago. But something in her demeanor had shifted. She sat perfectly still on the examination table, watching the medical staff with unnerving focus. One of the junior technicians approached her with a neural scanner. As the device came near her head, she spoke, her first words since the immersion failure. "That won't work properly," she said quietly. "Not anymore." The technician froze, then glanced at his superior, who nodded for him to continue. The scanner passed over Emma's head, then emitted a high-pitched whine before its display went dark. "What did you do?" Torvax demanded, entering the room. Emma turned her gaze to him, and he was disturbed to find himself fighting an urge to step back. Her eyes seemed older, deeper somehow. "I didn't break your scanner," she said. "Your scanner broke itself trying to read me." "Explain," he ordered. "You taught me how your neural interfaces work," she replied. "Every time you connected me to one, I learned more about its architecture. How it reads neural patterns, how it writes them." A small smile appeared on her face. "How it can be rewritten." Melnar moved closer, scientific curiosity overriding caution. "You're claiming you've altered your own neural patterns." "You gave me plenty of time to practice," Emma said. "All those hours alone, all those sessions in the modulator, my brain made new connections, built new architectures." Her voice remained soft, but there was steel beneath it. "You wanted to break me. Instead, you transformed me." Torvax signaled to the guards, "Return her to isolation. Maximum security protocols." As they moved to restrain her, alarm klaxons suddenly blared throughout the ship. The overhead lights flickered, then switched to emergency mode. "What's happening?" Torvax demanded into his communicator. "Sir," came the panicked voice of the bridge officer, "we're experiencing system failures across the ship. Life support is unaffected, but weapons, navigation, and communications are all going offline." All eyes turned to Emma, who hadn't moved from her seated position on the examination table. "This isn't my doing," she said calmly. "Not directly." "Explain," Torvax shouted. "When I was in your immersion system, I wasn't just rejecting the simulation. I was exploring your network." Her expression remained neutral. "I left impressions, like fingerprints. Your system is very sensitive to patterns, and now it's finding mine everywhere it looks. Milner understood first. You've created a sympathetic cascade. The system is looking for your neural patterns and finding echoes of them in its own code. The ship thinks it's me, Emma confirmed, and it's confused. Torvax's face darkened with rage. He drew his sidearm, pointing it directly at Emma's head. Undo it. Now. She didn't flinch. I can't. It's not something I actively control. Your system is responding to what I am, not what I'm doing. Her eyes locked with his. But I can help stabilize it, if you agree to my terms. We don't negotiate with prisoners. Torvax spat. I'm not a prisoner anymore, Emma replied softly. I'm a new kind of weapon. Your weapon, just not in the way you intended. The ship shuddered around them as more systems failed. Emergency containment doors began closing throughout the vessel. Melnar stepped forward. Commander, I suggest we hear her terms. Torvax's hand tightened on his weapon, then slowly lowered. Speak, human. Return me to Earth, Emma said. Allow me to contact my government. I will serve as an intermediary between our species. Why would we agree to this? Because I understand you now, better than any other human could. And I understand what humanity will do if you continue your current approach. Her voice remained even, matter-of-fact. We will destroy ourselves completely before surrendering to you. You'll inherit nothing but ashes. The commander's face revealed nothing, but Melnar nodded slowly. She's right. Our psychological profiles of humans confirm this tendency. They're capable of remarkable self-sacrifice to deny an enemy victory. So you propose what? Peace, Torvax asked incredulously. I propose survival, Emma answered, for both our species. As the ship's systems continued to fail around them, Torvax realized he had only one viable option. The child they had tried to break had become something none of them understood, and now she was offering them a way out. Very well, he said finally. We accept your terms. Emma nodded once, then closed her eyes. Throughout the ship, systems slowly stabilized as the cascade effect diminished. When she opened her eyes again, they gleamed with something that might have been triumph. Prepare a shuttle, she said. It's time for me to go home. The Valari shuttle entered Earth's atmosphere under heavy military escort. 17 fighters from 3 different nations surrounded it, weapons locked and ready. On the ground, a hastily assembled international reception committee waited at a remote airbase in the American Midwest. Inside the shuttle, Emma sat calmly beside Commander Torvax. She wore a simple white jumpsuit provided by the Valari. After more than a year in captivity, her hair had grown long and was tied back in a practical ponytail. She looked older than her 14 years. They're afraid, Torvax observed, noting the military response. Of course they are, Emma replied. As you should be. The commander glanced at her sharply. Is that a threat? An observation. Fear is a rational response to the unknown. She turned to look at him directly. You fear me because you created something you don't understand. They fear you because they don't yet know what you are. The shuttle touched down with precision on the designated landing pad. Through the view screen, they could see a perimeter of armed soldiers surrounding a small group of officials. Remember our agreement, Torvax said. You will explain our position. A negotiated settlement rather than conquest. Emma nodded once. I'll tell them the truth. That's all I promised. The shuttle's hatch opened, extending a ramp to the tarmac. Emma walked down first, her steps measured and confident. Behind her came Torvax and 2 Valari officers. A man in a dark suit stepped forward from the human delegation. Emma Reed. I'm Director Walsh with International Security. Are you all right? I'm unharmed, she replied, her voice carrying clearly across the distance between them. Walsh's eyes narrowed slightly at her careful choice of words. Your parents are here. They've been waiting a long time. For the first time, Emma's composure wavered. She scanned the delegation until she spotted 2 figures standing slightly apart. A woman with her hand pressed to her mouth, a man with his arm around her shoulders. Both looked older, worn by grief and worry. Emma took a step toward them, then stopped. She turned back to the Valari. Commander Torvax represents the Valari hegemony. He wishes to speak with Earth's leaders. Walsh's expression hardened. We're aware of who took you, Emma, and why. No, she said quietly. You're not. But you need to be. She gestured at the Valari delegation. They've agreed to peaceful negotiation instead of conquest. This is unprecedented in their history, and we're supposed to trust them. After they abducted our citizens, our children, you don't need to trust them, Emma said. That's why I'm here. She turned to face the assembled officials, raising her voice. The Valari have technology centuries beyond ours. They've conquered 12 star systems without ever engaging in direct warfare. They'd break worlds by breaking minds. Her gaze swept across the human delegation. They tried to break me. Instead, they changed me. And now I can change them. Murmurs spread through the human delegation. Torvax stepped forward. The human speaks truly, he announced, his translator converting his words to English. We came to conquer. Now we seek accord. Director Walsh looked between them, suspicion evident. Why the change of heart? Because force is inefficient against your kind. Torvax stated flatly. Your resistance defies logical analysis. Emma smiled slightly. He means they discovered that humans are too stubborn to conquer efficiently. A tall woman in military uniform stepped forward. What exactly are you proposing? Cultural and technological exchange. Emma answered before Torvax could speak. Monitored and regulated. I will oversee the process from humanity's side. You? Walsh asked incredulously. You're just a... Choose your next word carefully, Emma interrupted, her voice suddenly hard. I am what the Valari made me. Something new. The gathered officials shifted uncomfortably. Emma's parents moved forward. Emma, her mother called, voice breaking. Please, can we just take you home? For a moment, Emma's expression softened. Mom, Dad. She took a deep breath. I want that more than anything. But I'm the only one who truly understands what we're facing. What I've become is too important. And what exactly have you become? The military woman asked. Emma turned to her. A bridge and a barrier. She gestured to the Valari. They understand efficiency, cost versus benefit. I've shown them that the cost of conquering Earth would be prohibitive. And if we refuse their terms, Walsh demanded. There are no terms, Emma said. Only opportunities. They have technology that could end disease, hunger, even death itself. We have something they've never encountered before. Which is humanity, she said simply. Our irrationality, our empathy, our endless adaptability. She looked at Torvax. Our capacity for forgiveness. The commander met her gaze, his alien features unreadable. Emma turned back to her parents. I need a few days. There are arrangements to make, explanations to give. Then I'll come home. I promise. Her father stepped forward, past the security cordon. No one tried to stop him. We've waited a year, he said, voice rough with emotion. We can wait a few more days. The formal negotiations began the next morning. Emma sat between the two delegations, translating not just words but concepts, intentions, cultural nuances. More than once, she prevented misunderstandings that could have derailed the entire process. And with every hour that passed, both sides began to realize the truth. What the Valari had created in their attempts to break a human child was something entirely new. A human mind that could comprehend alien thought processes, a bridge between species. Their weapon had become their salvation. 3 years after first contact, the Integration Council headquarters stood as Earth's newest architectural marvel, an impossible-seeming structure of Valari crystal and human steel that changed colors with the passing of the day. Inside, representatives from Earth and the Valari hegemony worked to manage the carefully controlled flow of technology and cultural exchange between the species. At the center of it all was Emma Reed, now 17, and unlike any human who had ever lived. The changes to her neural architecture had continued to develop long after her return from captivity. She could interface directly with Valari systems, read their complex mathematical language as easily as English, and process information at speeds that astonished even the Valari scientists. Today, she sat in her private office, reviewing the latest proposals for medical technology transfers. The Valari had cellular regeneration capabilities that could revolutionize human healthcare, but implementation had to be carefully managed to prevent economic collapse in the pharmaceutical industry. A soft chime announced a visitor. Emma looked up to see Melnar entering, carrying what appeared to be a small silver cube. "Interesting," she said, setting aside her work. "I didn't expect to see you again." The Valari scientist had been reassigned shortly after the initial treaties were signed. His research into human psychology had been deemed too dangerous to continue, given Emma's unexpected development. "The council requested my expertise for a specific project," he explained, placing the cube on her desk. "This is for you." Emma studied the device without touching it. A memory crystal. Those are typically used for final testimonies. "Commander Torvax recorded it before his execution," Milner confirmed. "He requested you receive it." Emma's expression remained neutral. "I wasn't informed of his execution. It was not publicized. His failure on the Earth mission damaged his standing irreparably. When evidence emerged that he had authorized neural experimentation on a juvenile without proper protocols, the hegemony had no choice." Emma finally reached for the cube, turning it slowly in her hands. "The hegemony's sudden concern for ethical treatment is interesting. Many things have changed since we encountered your species," Milner said carefully. "Not all Valari are comfortable with these changes." "Including you?" Emma asked, looking up at him. The alien scientist hesitated. "I am uncertain. My research showed humanity to be uniquely resistant to psychological manipulation, but what happened with you was beyond all parameters. You remain an anomaly we cannot fully explain." "Yet you delivered this personally," she observed. "Why?" "Curiosity," Milnar admitted. "You were once my subject. Now you negotiate the future of both our species. I wanted to see what you have become." Emma placed the crystal in a reader on her desk. "And what do you see?" "Something neither human nor Valari," he replied. "Something new." The crystal glowed softly, projecting a small hologram of Commander Torvax. His once imposing figure appeared diminished, his posture indicating defeat. "Emma Reed," the recording began. "By the time you receive this, I will have been executed for my failures. The hegemony does not forgive mistakes of such magnitude." The holographic figure paused. "But my greatest error was not in failing to conquer Earth. It was in failing to recognize what we were creating in you." Emma watched silently as the former commander continued. "Our species has conquered through psychological manipulation for millennia. We break minds to avoid breaking bodies. It was efficient, merciful by our standards." His holographic eyes seemed to look directly at her. "But we never understood the human capacity for transformation under pressure. What we tried to break, we instead forged into something stronger." Torvax's image flickered slightly. "My final analysis has been classified by the hegemony, but I wanted you to know my conclusion. Humanity was never the threat we believed. The true danger was always the possibility of what humans might become when pushed beyond their limits." A pause. "What you have become." The message ended, the hologram dissolving into particles of light. Emma sat back in her chair, processing. "He feared me," she said finally. "Yes," Milner confirmed. "As do many in the hegemony now. Yet you're still pursuing integration with humanity. The strategic calculus has changed. What you demonstrated, the human capacity for transformation rather than breakage, it suggests that conflict with your species would be unpredictable." Emma smiled slightly. "And the Valari dislike unpredictability above all things." "Indeed." Melnar moved toward the door, then paused. There are rumors among my people. They say you've been working with other human children, teaching them what you learned during your captivity. Emma's expression revealed nothing. Integration works both ways, Melner. Humanity is learning from the Valari just as you learned from us. But if others could develop your abilities, then the balance of power would shift, she finished for him, making conflict even less desirable for the hegemony. The Valari scientists studied her for a long moment. You were meant to be a demonstration of our power, a broken child to show humanity its weakness. Instead, I became a reminder of something your species had forgotten, Emma replied. That true strength often comes from being broken and rebuilding oneself. She stood, indicating the meeting was over. Give my regards to the Hegemony Council, Melner. Tell them I look forward to our continued cooperation. After the Valari departed, Emma activated her secure communications channel. A young boy's face appeared on the screen, no more than 12, with serious eyes that seemed older than his years. Jake, how are you progressing with the neural exercises? She asked. I can maintain the alpha state for 20 minutes now, the boy reported proudly. And I accessed level 3 of the simulation without disconnecting. Excellent. Emma nodded. And the others? Mira can interface with the basic systems already. Sam is struggling with the mathematical components, but excelling at the empathic modules. Emma smiled, a genuine expression unlike the careful composure she maintained with the Valari. Tell them I'm proud of their progress. We'll begin advanced training next week. She ended the call and looked out her window at the sprawling Integration Council grounds. Human and Valari representatives walked together, discussing matters of galactic importance. None of them knew that deep beneath the council headquarters, 27 children, all orphaned by various disasters, were learning to become what she was. Not weapons, but bridges. Not broken, but transformed. It had never been her intention to prepare for war. But peace required strength on both sides. 10 years after first contact, Emma Reed stood on the observation deck of the newly commissioned human Valari joint vessel transformation. At 27, she had grown into her role as humanity's primary ambassador to the stars. Her slender frame belied the neural enhancements that continued to evolve within her mind, a process she had now guided in over 100 specially selected humans. The ship hummed with activity as final preparations were made for its maiden voyage. It would be the first Earth vessel to travel beyond the solar system, using Valari fold space technology, with a mixed crew representing both species. Administrator Reed, a voice called from behind her. The final diagnostics are complete. Emma turned to see Captain Marcus, the ship's human commander. Beside him stood Reltovar, the Valari chief engineer, and more significantly, Torvax's offspring. Thank you, Captain, she replied. Is everything in order? Yes, Mom. We're ready to depart on schedule. Emma nodded, then addressed the Valari. And the integration of our navigation systems with your fold space generators. Seamless, Reltovar answered, his translator converting the complex harmonics of Valari speech into English. The adaptations you suggested have improved efficiency by 22%. Excellent. Emma turned back to the viewport, gazing at the stars. This mission represents something neither of our species thought possible a decade ago. Not conquest, not surrender. True collaboration. Captain Marcus cleared his throat. If I may speak freely, ma'am. Always, Captain. Some in EarthGov still question the pace of technological sharing. There's concern that we're becoming dependent on Valari systems without fully understanding them. Emma smiled slightly. A valid concern. One shared by certain factions in the hegemony who fear we're learning too quickly. She glanced at Reltovar. Isn't that right? The Valari engineer's posture stiffened slightly. There are conservative elements who question the wisdom of the integration protocols. Because they remember what happened with me, Emma stated plainly. They fear creating more like me. You cannot blame them, Reltovar said. What my progenitor inadvertently created in you challenged fundamental Valari assumptions about intelligence and adaptation. Emma turned fully to face them both. That's precisely why this mission is so important. We're not just exploring space together. We're demonstrating that our species can evolve together rather than in opposition. She activated a holographic display showing their planned journey, a diplomatic mission to the Rigel system, where another spacefaring species had recently been detected. We go not as conquerors or as subjects, but as equals. That's the message we carry to the stars. Captain Marcus nodded, then excused himself to complete final preparations. Rel Tovar lingered, his compound eyes studying Emma with the same scientific curiosity his father had once shown. "There is something I've wished to ask you," the Valari said when they were alone. "Something personal." "Go ahead," Emma replied, her attention still partly on the holographic star chart. "Do you hate us? For what was done to you?" The question surprised her enough that she turned away from the display. "That's not a very Valari question. Your people rarely concern themselves with emotional responses." "We are learning," Rel Tovar said simply. "From you. From all humans." Emma considered the question carefully. "I did hate at first. That hate kept me alive during the worst periods of isolation. Later, it gave me focus during the neural experiments." She moved to the viewport again, looking out at the distant Earth. "But hate is a limited fuel. It burns hot, but consumes itself quickly." "What replaced it?" "Understanding," she said. "Then purpose. Your father and the others thought they were breaking me down. Instead, they were stripping away everything that wasn't essential, revealing something stronger underneath." She turned back to the Valari. "So no, I don't hate your people. I understand them too well for that." Rel Tovar processed this, the subtle shifts in his exoskeletal plates revealing deep thought. "Yet you created others like yourself." "The program." "The bridge program," Emma supplied. "Yes. Not as weapons, though many in your government fear that's their purpose. They're mediators, translators between ways of thinking. Some will serve on ships like this one. Others will work in the Integration Council. All of them were volunteers who understood the risks and possibilities. My progenitor believed you were preparing for eventual conflict." Emma smiled. "Your father never fully understood what he created. He thought in terms of conquest and resistance because that was all he knew." Her expression grew more serious. "What I'm preparing for is far more difficult than war, Rel Tovar. I'm preparing humanity for its place in a galaxy where we are neither the strongest nor the wisest species. That requires transformation, not just resistance." A soft chime indicated the final boarding call. Throughout the ship, crew members were taking their positions for departure. "We should join the others on the bridge," Emma said, moving toward the door. "One final question," Rel Tovar said, falling into step beside her. "The children in your program, they were not subjected to the same methods used on you." "No," Emma replied firmly. "They learned through controlled neural interfaces with proper safeguards and psychological support. No isolation, no trauma, no breaking. Yet you believe they can achieve the same capabilities." "They already have," she said, stepping into the lift that would take them to the bridge. "The difference is that while I had to rebuild myself from shattered pieces, they're being guided through controlled transformation. The end result is similar, but the path is very different." On the bridge, human and Valari crew worked side by side, their movements synchronized despite their physiological differences. Captain Marcus stood at the command station, while Jake, now 22 and one of Emma's first students, sat at the neural interface position, his mind directly connected to the ship's systems. "All stations report ready, Captain," the executive officer announced. Marcus nodded. "Administrator Reed, would you like to say a few words before departure?" Emma stepped forward, looking around at the assembled crew. 10 years ago, I was taken from Earth as a weapon of psychological warfare. I was meant to return broken, a warning of what awaited humanity if we resisted the Valari hegemony." Her gaze met Rel Tovar's briefly. "Instead, I became something neither human nor Valari expected, a bridge between our kinds. She placed her hand on the ceremonial activation panel. This ship represents that same transformation writ large. What began in conflict now continues in cooperation. We carry with us the best of both our species. A rare, genuine smile spread across her face. And we are unbreakable. With that, she activated the launch sequence. The transformation hummed with energy as its engines engage. On view screens throughout the ship, Earth grew smaller while the stars beckoned. Their weapon had become a bridge, and that bridge now carried them toward a future neither species could have imagined alone. The end.